Hi everyone, it's Sarah from the Support Worker Store. Today I've got a really cool one because I've got my very first live update with Hayley. I've had Hayley as a guest before and I brought her back because she's up to some really unique and quirky things and we just needed to have this catch up. I hope you don't mind, Hayley.
No, absolutely. Any chance to nerd out and catch up with you, Sarah, is always the way to spend my night.
Well, so the last one that we had, and we did like an Instagram live and I turned it into a podcast. And the name of it was NDIS Parent to Support Coordination, Navigating the System from Inside. That was a previous line. What would you call if we had to do a title today, what would you call it now?
NDIS parent who is crazy and decided that she doesn't have enough to do. So let's just add more to her plate and conquer the world. How's that? Yeah.
Well, that sounds very in line with you. And just for anyone that's listening to Hayley for the very first time, Hayley, you're a mum of 3 girls?
I am, yeah.
Yep. And you started in the disability sector because of your daughter. Do you want to explain a little bit about how you got here?
Yeah. I can give the executive summaries. I have 3 girls. They are 11, 9, and 7. And Pippa, who is my youngest, she was born with a genetic syndrome called Wiedemann-Steiner syndrome. We just call it the really fancy name for dodgy genes, really. And so we spent her first sort of 2 years in hospital with, failure to thrive. She liked to drink stuff, and instead of it going into her stomach, it went into her lungs. So she has the nasogastric tube, and she now has a PEG, oxygen, low tone. She's 7 now, so we're getting to understand her a bit more. So she's got an intellectual disability, and we're navigating school and social stuff, which is always fun. But basically, when Pippa was 2, I decided myself that I needed some attention and had a dance with the big C. So I was diagnosed with cervical cancer and I needed some help because I lived in, at the time, regional South Australia and needed some help with Pippa's care while I had to undergo treatment, and they told me to go to child protection if I couldn't care for my child. And so I went, well, I've been involved with child protection for most of my career and I don't think that's right. So once we navigated the clusterfuck that had become our life and come on the other side, I went, I'm an intelligent human and I just can't navigate this system. And so I went, I'm going to give it a go. I reckon I could do this. And I'd started to nerd out on NDIS legislation. And so I went to some friends with NDIS plans and I said, hey, could I have a go at your kids' plan? I reckon I could get you some more money. And they're like, well, it can't get any worse. And, it turned out that I was really good at it. And so that was when Ali Disability Support Services was born, and we've sort of grown to become an Australia-wide paediatric support coordination company. And yeah, that's how we got to here today.
From here, you actually expanded into a new role, which is...
I know. Yes. So
just feel really overwhelmed. So you're now the CEO of Kindship.
Yes.
Can you explain what have you gone and done now?
Well, yeah, I know. Well, like I said, I decided I had too much free time on my hands. So basically, you hear all these narratives around people and NDIS, and if you're looking at the media and the media saying all these dodgy providers, I can tell you I don't know a single ethical provider that's driving a Lamborghini from NDIS.
Thank you for saying that, because
thank you.
No, really, thank you, because it's true, because neither do I. I ain't been with them.
Yeah. I don't know a single ethical provider. Like when I see all these media conferences and press conferences, and I'm just going, who are you talking about? Because I don't know anyone like that.
I've never referred them to somebody with a Lambo. Like,
I know.
Where do they hang out? Like, where are they? I feel that, and I exactly what I know.
Yeah, like according to Minister Butler, you and I, I should be sitting here because I've got that NDIS provider thing. If I should be using $100 bills as toilet paper, apparently, but I've missed the memo. But anyway, I digress. So running a support coordination company, for those of you who are aware of the NDIS you work on your hourly rates and that sort of thing. And support coordination hasn't been increased. I'm going to say 6 years, but I feel like it's 7, but I'm just going to say 6 years. So we haven't even gotten that little CPI increase that other line items and providers have received. And so even though my hourly rates haven't gone up, my work cover has gone up, my wages have gone up, like everything has gone up. And it really just got to the point where I was like, I cannot sustain my family and work as a support coordinator and run the business. Sure, if I wanted to put on 20 support coordinators and go for it, I probably could, at scale. Maybe not drive a Lamborghini, but maybe, a Toyota Land Cruiser or something like that. But I just couldn't do it. Like I really invest heavily in my staff, and we are all NDIS nerds. So I went out and started to do some provider consulting because I was sick of basically being a business coach and an NDIS compliance officer for free, because you do that a lot as a support coordinator.
Yep.
And I started to work with this organization called Kindship as a subject matter expert with their NDIS, some of the cool tech stuff that they're doing within NDIS. And they kept offering me jobs, and I was like, no, I can't do it. I love my team. I love my families. And then they sort of made me an offer I couldn't refuse, because this position with Kindship gives me the privilege of having such a huge audience. So for those of you who haven't heard of Kindship, we are a plan management company, predominantly working with parents and carers of children and young adults with disabilities. But there's also this really awesome community arm of Kindship where we have thousands of families in a Facebook group, so providing that connection. We also do a lot of free education events. So I'll do a webinar once a month with my amazing sidekick, Tara. So and we call that Decoding the NDIS. And we also have a grant actually from the NDIA where we are working on building a e-navigator solution for families navigating the NDIS, and her name is Barb. So we are servicing, we worked it out the other day, something like over 45,000 social media following, and such this massive audience. And I just went, there's a real opportunity to do a lot of good here. So I said yes, and here I am.
That is, isn't it? 45,000 on a social media platform is a duty of care to ensure that information is correct, because for some families it is a lifeline and a way to communicate, but also it can be really scary, and especially right now.
Yeah.
I saw the bill go to Parliament the other day and went, oh, this is for people, it's a lot.
Yeah, it is. And I think that's where, and I should just, sort of say, we don't have 45,000 on one platform, but between, all of our socials combined, we have a really big audience, and it's exactly right. And I feel a real sense of duty because we've got a lot of families who we are there, in insight to the agency and to the NDIS. And my inbox, so after Minister Butler's address to National Press Conference, I sent out an email to our community and sort of, did some lives in our Facebook group, Kindship Connect. My inbox was flooded, and I'm still getting emails from my article and my newsletter just going, thank you. So I got it from providers and also families. Thank you so much for actually giving us something we can give to our families. So this was from providers, where it's not feeding into that clickbait and the fear and all this sort of stuff. But then also being able to articulate what's going on in a way that we as families can understand. And that's kind of my that's what I get told at work is my gift, is that I can translate the NDIS in a way that makes it just, so we can go on and we can care and advocate for our kids and not have to be lawyers and agency staff in order to be able to do that.
It's kind of having that option to have an informed decision and broken down, because there's so many times these things in the past, probably 10 years ago, I probably would have ignored something like that bill, to be honest with you, because I just didn't have the capacity to break it down to fully understand it. Now in this time, 2026, it's so much more than ever before, and especially with all the hype going on in the media, with all
Mm,
of us dodgy providers in Lambos, I feel
mhm.
like it's like a hot pot at the moment.
Yeah, yeah, it's almost like to say you're an NDIS provider at the minute is almost a bit of a dirty word, isn't it?
I got my friends there was I was at a barbecue and somebody asked me what I did and she's like, I didn't know whether I should lie and tell them I work in the NDIS or I just completely do I tell them? Do I not tell them? She's like, I told them and I was waiting for the backlash that's coming because she was saying that I used to be really proud to tell people that I was a support coordinator. Now I'm not. Now I'm much more quiet.
Yeah, yeah, which is it's so hard and, I think it's also worth taking a minute for those small to medium NDIS providers as
Mm.
well at the minute. There is so much uncertainty and I there's a lot of people at the minute who are wondering how they're gonna feed their kids, and how they're gonna pay their bills and how they're going to they've got staff that, who have mortgages and responsibilities and all that sort of thing, and one of the worst things I have found working in this space is that that all of these reforms are coming, but you don't know what. You don't know what it will look like. So if we look back at when the NDIS review was first handed down, they spoke about navigators then. Let's use them as a great example. So for those of you who aren't aware, there was an independent review into the NDIS. I'm going to say those findings were released in 2023 or early 2024. I can't remember. But one of those recommendations was that your plan managers, your support coordinators, your liaison officers, your LACs all sort of come together to formulate this navigator role. There's never been an official, yes, we're going to adapt that, or no, we're not. But there's been language around, when the navigator function comes, and it's like, well, what is that navigator function?
Where?
Yeah, exactly. What is that navigator function? And there's been, we know the early childhood partners and the partners in the communities, their funding is up mid next year. So who's then filling those roles and all that sort of thing? And then from a business perspective, you can't plan. It's so in terms of say Ali as a support coordination business, we are an unregistered provider because it made no business sense to me to register my business
Yep.
because I had no agency managed participants. And that's not uncommon for pediatric providers. And so when the mandatory registration was announced for support coordinators, I was like, fine, no worries. Let's go and get registered. But it was also at the time that they announced reforms to the registration process. And so I was like, well, I'm not going to register until those reforms come in. But here we are now, another 18 months down the track, and support coordination mandatory registration has been taken off the list. I feel like the registration reform task force has kind of done their job and nothing's happened since then. And we've got all of these providers just sitting there going, what the? And then in the
Yeah.
latest reforms, there's actually no mention of a navigator function in the rollout at all.
Mm.
And so this is the thing is we've got it's the little guys that are really impacted by this because, most of the time, look, there's shitty providers everywhere. There's shitty big providers, there's shitty small providers. It's just life. But we are in this constant, almost like this hypervigilance of like, right, well, here it comes again. But we we were supposed to have new framework plans released in September 2025 with the needs assessments and all that sort of thing. That was pushed to January 2026, and then it was pushed to June 2026. It was pushed to October, and now it's been pushed to April 2027. So I can tell anyone listening who is freaking about these reforms, just keep in mind these are sort of how the can has been kicked down the line with these timeframes, and that's just one example. There will be some significant changes first up, in terms of with the reduction of the social and community participation budgets
Mm.
and with the rolling over, the non-rollover of unspent plan fundings and the plan change of situations and that sort of thing. Like we're going to see the impact of them quite quickly.
Seeing it now. For the last probably maybe year to 6 months, I've seen people getting slashed. So I
Oh,
feel like it was kind of like they've been doing it like a soft launch, and
mm.
now they're making it quite public. Like, yeah, we're gonna cut some more.
Yeah, we don't, I don't know. Like we have really mixed stuff. We have seen, the only time we've sort of seen plans get smashed is more so in terms of those unscheduled plan reassessments where they're the cheeky ones. And so Section 50 does of the NDIS Act does say that you should be given a reasonable amount of time to provide evidence, even on an unscheduled plan reassessment. But that's the thing, is the legislation says that, but then you've got to have the power and the energy to actually fight that. And then what do you do in that interim when your plans have been slashed and all that sort of thing?
I look at this, and especially like coming from a background having kids in the sector, how exhausting is that for a parent that doesn't know that? It's not only, they only know that is if they're informed about it, or, they really have to deep dive and search that. If you don't have that knowledge, how do you fight that battle? Like, it's quite a difficult battle to fight, especially for me, I know I would struggle with that.
I think the hardest thing, and obviously I can't talk for all parents, but some of the common themes we see at Kindship, it's the fact that we've got parents who are being proactive and they can't get a straight answer and they can't get a consistent answer. So you might go to your NDIS contact and they'll tell you this, but then you'll talk to another mum who's like, oh no, my NDIS contact said this. Then you might go to your plan manager and they'll tell you something different, and then you go this and this, and it's just, and then you've got all this media stuff at the minute, and people who aren't in the sector thinking that participants now become this huge burden on society. And when we have, our Minister for Disability and Ageing and Health talking about, well, here's this $200 million community fund, so, and I quote, we can host disabled people. It's like, oh yeah, no, we won't just, let's live from a place of inclusion. We'll host you. Like
Yeah.
it's just disgusting. It's just like, I could keep going, and I just think of Pippa, and Pippa will be fine because she has me, and we talk about this at work quite a lot. So at Kindship, all of our plan managers have all got lived experience of having children of disability. The chair of our board and founder of Kindship, she's an adult who lives with autism. Like, we have lived experience completely enmeshed in everything we do.
They were talking about the 200 million into
Mm.
community. My head went, because I knew prior to the NDIS, as a support worker, our job was to engage community and move people into it so they wouldn't stay in service. But my head went, well, dear, like, how do you do the transition? Like, it's not like I'll drop you off at your local neighborhood house or your local football club and you're in community and we're included. There's actually a really big process behind it to get
Mm.
people included. It's not an easy, I'll just give some cash to some local communities and hope for the best. It isn't. There's like
Yeah.
so many social stories I've had to make for a lady in particular, I'm thinking, that wanted to go to the local gym. And that took months of consistency before she got to be independent at her local gym. So it's not an easy thing to do. I still need a little bit more to fully understand it, unpack it. But I felt like 200 million is probably a bit
Not going
low.
to touch the sides. It's not going to touch
It's
the
low.
sides.
That's a
Like,
low
if
amount.
it's that thing on, like, I mean, yeah, we can tick and go, well, it's better than nothing. Um, but it's just not going to touch the sides. And look, in terms of to provide an objective, because I don't want to, I'm always really conscious of the media and stuff just being really one-sided. So in terms of to provide an objective perspective, the scheme is currently unsustainable. It is growing at a rate that was never, ever foreseen. And I think that in itself just shows the lack of understanding of disabled people and inclusion in Australia. But when we look at, I think, how we got here, it is from a culture perspective that the NDIS did become the only life raft for people living with disabilities. And so, yes, we have seen, and, I know I've lived it, the moment Pippa got an NDIS plan, we were kicked out of the health system And they were like, right, off you go and get your private speech, go and get your private dietitian, OT, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, no, but I really like our, and in terms of, uh, to access her cheerleading, for example, like she absolutely loves cheerleading. And we have found the most inclusive, wonderful, mainstream gym who put and invest a lot of time in inclusion and understand inclusion. And inclusion is not putting Pippa in the special class. She is in a mainstream class and they adapt choreography. They do all this sort of stuff. We put her loops in, we do all that. And that is then like she can engage fully, even with, but she needs those reasonable adjustments. The point I'm making is that is they are the anomaly, because everyone else now, well, you just bring a support worker with you. Like, you want to come to this art and crafts,
Yeah.
thing on a Saturday afternoon, no worries. Well, we won't make the environment reasonable and adjustments and accessible. That's the word I'm looking for. We won't make that accessible for you, but hey, you've got NDIS funding, so you can pay a support worker to bring you and support you and all this sort of stuff. And I think in this instance, we are talking predominantly about behavioural things like personal care and medical administration and feeds and all that sort of thing. That is different. And that's we could have a whole other podcast on talking about disability related health needs.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I think the people that are really going to struggle here are those people where behaviour is really tricky in the community, because it's really hard to demonstrate that. I've been providing evidence to the agency for a number of years now in terms of how to get NDIS funding for little people. And when someone can't toilet, can't dress, can't, move by themselves, which, there is the argument of, well, those are the people that NDIS was originally designed for. But what we are missing here is just the massive behaviours, like it's
People can be misread and misinterpreted because they always appear like they've got a disability.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
They
It's those
do walk
visible.
into situations, but it's a different type of situation. It is also that like behavior, but it's that social awkwardness as well.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Some things that brings up and shakes up. I'm just like
Yeah,
so much more training needed. Like
yeah, yeah.
it,
Like I look at Pippa and I go, okay, she is a young person. She is the poster child for early intervention. Like she really is. She's just absolutely smashing goals,
yeah.
and we would not be where we are without NDIS. I can 100% agree with that. But when she is an adult and she has an intellectual disability and her cup is filled by people, she wants to be around people. Now, I don't need to tell you the stats of sexual assaults and women and intellectual disability. I don't need to do that. And then the other day, I was having a really great conversation with my best friend who is a senior police officer. And she's like, well, define informed consent, because you've got adults who are, like consenting to, either giving their money over or having sex or doing different things. And it's just, we've got this real culture, just lack of understanding. And so in terms of, she's someone like Pip will be able to access the community by herself, but she will need some safeguards, and I don't know how we achieve that without having another person, adult or non-disabled person with her to help her
It's
and
support.
scaffold that. Is the agency going to fund that? I don't think they will moving forward, and I
It,
don't know what the answer is.
No, I
Yeah,
don't know what the answer is
yeah,
too, but I agree with you because
yeah,
there's been so many times that I've supported people that have got
yeah,
themselves into some really tricky situation, and there was some social cues, and you put in social media on top of it. It is so hard to navigate that because if you take things off face value and you think somebody's your friend, they're not always there for clear intent, and especially when there's an opportunity, and some people out there are just opportunists.
yeah,
And trying
absolutely.
to, like, filter them out to ensure that, you have got somebody in your life that is of quality that
Yeah,
can, contribute
exactly.
and not hurt or use you.
Exactly. And then it's also, and then we have the other thing. No wonder I'm tired when I just put this out loud. And no wonder parents are tired, because these are the things that go on in my head. Because it's like, but then we don't want to get in her way of living her life and having her independence. And it's like,
On
you
your
know what?
terms.
Exactly. It's like, okay, you want to eat a chicken schnitzel for dinner every night, like, but when you're 25 and I'm your mum, like, who am I to say no? You know what I mean? Like, and all that sort of things. Yeah, it's just I don't have the answers for that, other than, saying to people and other parents, like, I see you, and
Yeah.
that's really freaking hard. But I think we were talking about displaying of evidence and slashing of plans. And I do have to say that we haven't experienced it as much at Ali, in terms of, because we are really good at, we've cracked the code in terms of providing evidence in the way that the agency need to see it. But we're specialists. That's our job. And again, how are everyday people and participants and carers and families and plan nominees and child representatives and all that sort of stuff? It's just a system that is not built to support that. And I am going through the proposed new bill, and I am rereading
Yeah.
and going through stuff, and I'm just like, how? Look, I realize that, everyday citizens aren't expected to look at the legislation and understand that, and there's ways, but where it's when you're looking at needing to advocate for someone you love, it's like, well, you kind of need to. You need to know what's going on, like, not the big stuff, like, sorry,
Yeah.
not the little nuances, So the fact that it's proposed that a change of situation turnaround time has moved from 21 days to 90 days, like, okay, yes, that impacts people, but the fact that your unspent funding is not going to roll over, because we know lots of families who bank on that
Yes.
for school holidays, for therapy intensives, for all that sort of stuff. And, that flexibility is really gone, and that's really hard.
I'll be honest, I did read the bill and I have put off releasing stuff about it because I was like, oh, I don't want to be a part of a fearmonger and I don't want to put,
Yeah.
yeah, like I'm really wary of that because it was quite intense and there were quite a lot of heavy changes and they're not easy changes and it affects everybody in it.
Yeah.
It affects from the person that we serve to their families to all the roles that were created under the
Hmm.
NDIS. It
Yeah.
is everyone's affected. So with that type of knowledge and information, held off because I needed to go a bit further, but also do it in a way that is safe as well. Because I'd
Hmm.
hate to think that if I put more negative news out that I was a
Hmm.
part of the problem.
Yeah. And that's something that I've been really conscious of with our audience. And I actually put a post up in our Kindship Connect group the other night, where I was like, hey guys, I know you've had radio silence from me, and that's unusual, but it's like, I'm going for accuracy over speed in this, because we have that responsibility. But I guess also too, and I would share this with your audience too, is I'm always like, just pick 2 or 3 places to get your information from and try and block out
All the crap.
everyone else. Because, and I think also too, Kindship is also a tech innovation company. So, we're in there, but AI is being used so much. And I know I've seen a lot of inaccurate stuff on LinkedIn by people who I'm like, you actually know better than this, but in the thing of getting haste, you've used AI to run through this without facts checking. And that's actually wrong. And I don't want to be that
Part of
person, especially, yeah, I feel with a responsibility. And then also too, with you and your audience, where there is talk now of certain mandatory registration in terms of personal care and enclosed spaces and that sort of thing. So you're going to be fielded, like pummeled with questions.
yeah, yeah. I'm like, I get why they did some of it. Like, to be fair, like when it comes
Mm.
to support work, because it is really personal.
Yeah.
Personal care is personal. Medication support is required. Like it's a profession, and we need to treat support workers as a profession. So I get that part there. I just need a bit more. if that makes any
Mm.
sense. So, yeah, there has been some hold off from me because I just want to get it right because I do have like a duty of care to an audience.
And I think, though, that that's exactly what we're talking about, though, is that there's these big sort of announcements and they would have an idea. You know what I mean? Like these types of announcements, if you don't have some sort of loose idea on how you're going to roll this stuff out, it wouldn't be made public. And so and I think too with support workers, what they have to be very careful about is sustainability in the market. Because if they make mandatory registration, because I know a lot of questions, I said I do a decoding the NDIS webinar once a month, but we did just an ad hoc one on the reforms. And I got a lot of questions because a lot of our parents work as support workers as well, because the flexibility and stuff works with their life. And so many people are like, well, what if I'm a support worker but I don't provide personal care, and all this sort of stuff. And it's like, we don't have those answers, and we're not going to have those answers for a really long time. So I can tell you what I think is going to happen, but it's exactly that. I don't have a crystal ball, and I could be wrong because I'm literally guessing. And I think that that's maybe some of the stuff too that's out there, is that people in in positions of influence are literally guessing without going, hey guys, I'm guessing here. Whereas so I'm always really upfront with our community of, I could be wrong.
Yeah, I
I could be wrong.
100%. And there is like a duty of care, but you've got the community on social platforms, but you've also got that tech side as well, and what you feed your tech to ensure that it is in par and in line. How do you monitor that as an organization?
Yeah, so Barb is a little bit of a nuanced sort of, she's a special lady, our Barb. So in terms of, to just, I guess, peel it back a little bit, Barb has had many forms, but, she's sort of grown into, we're working as an e-navigator. So basically she's the first e-navigator for families navigating NDIS, but also those complex systems. So it's more so in terms of, the idea is that she will be available for parents who are going, went to playgroup and I've really noticed that Johnny's a little bit behind on his speech compared to the other kids, up to, sort of people, burnt out parents who have kids on the NDIS just going, where to from here? But what we learnt very quickly is that when we were working with, I think it was Deakin. It was before my time. It was one of the universities. I'm going to say Deakin University, but just saying that could be wrong. We were working on a language model where we fed her all of the legislation, all of the policies, put all of these different workflows and that sort of stuff into her brain. And we were capping out at 88% accuracy because it was actually impossible for the language model to be able to interpret all of the nuances of NDIS policy and legislation and the contradictions, and the fact that there are over 1,000 contradictions between the Act and the PAPL and, all these different things. So we went, oh, okay, we're going to have to look at this a bit differently. So what we've been working on is how can we use evidence-based, peer-reviewed sources to build Barb's brain so that we can actually, with predictability, know exactly what she's going to give to parents who are using her. So in terms of, ChatGPT is always a great one. At the minute, you plug something into ChatGPT and let's face it, it's getting better and better. But the reality is you don't know how it has come to its answer. All right. And so that's why governments don't use it. That's why, it's sort of, because it's, as my chief technology officer, he'll be so proud of me because I'm going to use his sentence here. It's a black box. So it's good. It gives it out, but it's a black box. We don't know how it got in there. And so what we've done with Barb is we've almost cracked the code in terms of the formula on how we can have complete control over everything that goes into her brain. So it's not actually using AI to give an answer. because we have worked a way where it's like, no, when Hayley types this, this is what the information that Barb is going to provide. And then that way we can offer 100% accuracy. And until we've got that, we're really ethically we're not going to, I guess, release her
Until she's ready. Because she's
unfiltered.
going to have some really interesting questions from families.
Yeah, yeah. And so, she's a navigator. At the end of the day, she's high level. She's not there to take the place of a support coordinator or, a plan manager or something like that. Pip's been on the scheme for 6.5 years, and I haven't heard from her community partner in 5 years because their workloads are insane. It's, so it's that thing on, if it's not broke, don't fix it. I haven't reached out for help. I haven't anything because we've got a really good side plan. And that's where, and the rolling over and all that sort of stuff, it has given us such an immense amount of freedom and flexibility and that sort of things. Yeah, there's a lot there to unpack.
So with the group, what have you learned as a parent? Like, I know you've got your CEO hat on, but you'd be taking some of the information from parents as well?
Absolutely. Absolutely. What I have learnt from parents is don't mess with a mama who is there to fight for her kids. And I just love reading some of the comments in Kindship Connect because, I'm one of the moderators, obviously. And the articulation and the way, some of these women, right? I'm like, I want to give you a job. Like, I want you on my side, is really cool. But then there is also the parents that are just exhausted, and they are the one I feel so sorry for them because they feel like, I used to hate it when I'd be at therapy and they'd be like, okay, here's your exercises for home. And I'm like, something else that I need to feel guilty about because I'm not going to do it.
We have
I'm not
3
going to do
kids.
it.
I get it.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm not going to do it. But, obviously now it's like I give it to the support worker. We've got a really good team around us now. But back then, like when we were still learning and coming up for air and all that, I'm like, I ain't doing that, but I'm going to feel guilty, even though I know I'm not going to do it. I'm going to feel guilty that I'm not going to do that. And I look at them, seeing all of this information and they're like, oh my goodness, like I should be doing this and I should be learning this. And, the fact that they're even coming to a decoding the NDIS webinar, it's like the fact that they're taking, sometimes 2 hours out of a day to come and listen to me ramble on and geek out over NDIS, they shouldn't be, they should be eating lunch. They should be sitting at lunch doing, at work at their desk or at home, when the midday movie comes on and you're like, do they even have midday movies anymore? It would be like Netflix, I guess. But anyway,
But
yeah.
you'd have such a different cohort. Like, you'd have people just entering in to the NDIS the very first time, and it's quite overwhelming for parents,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
to some seasoned players.
Yeah.
Do you
Yeah.
find that they support each other? Because
They do.
yeah.
They do. They really do. I think, and I guess that's the heart of Kindship. That's why Kindship was started originally. So Kindship actually started as a social networking app solution, that sort of thing. And it was only in early 2024 where we actually registered to become a plan manager because we did a crowdsource funding. They raised over $1.5 million because people believed in Barb and that sort of thing. But the money was running out and they were like, we need to do something. Like, what can we do? Because we need to fund our innovation and support our community. And so that was then how plan management came about because we had incredible humans in the team. And so what our plan management is what actually fuels our tech innovation. Also why I'm not driving a Lamborghini, because every spare cent then gets spent, how can we support our community a bit more? And we believe that building Barb is how we can support our community. So yeah, so that sort of, works in on all of that too.
Well, you've gone from support coordination to learning now plan management. Has it changed any of your thoughts or views?
I used to say you could never pay me all the tea in China to be a plan manager. I can't believe, like here I said, honestly, there are days where I just look at this and I just go, are you fucking kidding me? It's really opened my eyes because, and one of our team members said it the other day, last week. She's like, when I took this job, I thought I was processing invoices. That's what it was sold to me as. But I am here and I am a counselor at times, like in terms of people are so upset, especially
Yeah.
if we say no to paying support. I'm a legislation interpreter.
Mhm.
I am this, I am that, and the worst thing about being a plan manager is that there's no book, you know what I mean? Because legislation is so interpretive. So me as a support coordinator, it's really easy for me to go, well, I think this, and I think the plan manager should pay it. But it's really easy for me to say that because that money's not coming out of my business account. That money's not coming. And again, we're talking about the small people here. We're not talking about your massive providers who've got squillions of dollars behind them, where a couple of, if the payment integrity team looks at that and goes, no, we don't agree with that, and they, want 20 grand paid back, 20 grand is probably their tea and coffee budget. Whereas for the small providers, 20 grand, that's make or break them. That is make or break them. So what I have learned is that plan managers are given a shit ton of responsibility and almost next to no resources. So as a really, really good example is you technically don't have to share your plan with a plan manager. And then the plan manager's supposed to work out what is a stated support and what is not a stated support. And, how are they supposed to do that? How are they? And as the portals and stuff get better, we can see a little bit more information in that. But they're given all of these responsibilities with no tools on how to do it.
Sometimes I think plan management's like 140 per person.
104.
Is 104?
Yeah.
Is
100.
it
And
worth
it sounds like it's so
like,
on
but,
scale.
like, when you think about it, to pay a staff member, is it worth it? Like, I
It
always
is
think
on.
that with plan
Yeah.
management because I was like, "Oh my gosh," sometimes you have to, like, chase people and get on top, like, "You need to do this," and I remember sitting with a few of them, like, "I have sent this invoice back 4 or 5 times, and we're still here," and I sort of think bang for buck, is it worth it
Yeah, look,
for a small
on
provider?
scale, it can be. And, there's always, they do even themselves out. So, I, as Pippa's parent, I might send, 2 or 3 invoices a fortnight. And so I'm pretty cruisy. But then there might be others where, we spent hours on the phone with them. So it does sort of even themselves out. I think what I'm really looking forward to with this reform is at the minute, compliance is really important to me. And we have been told by our plan, especially our plan management software provider, they're like, man, you guys are like next level in terms of compliance. And I'm like, good, because I actually really care about what happens to our participants. And we take it seriously because, again, everyone's burnt out and then they shouldn't be responsible for the legislation. But it's really hard when you've then got, say, an OT or a support coordinator going, I've had other plan managers put this through. Why are you saying no? And, and all that sort of stuff. And that is really hard. And I think the other thing, but with this increase in compliance around plan management is because people just leave. They go, all right, well, I'll go to another plan manager. I don't like
Yeah.
you. And you're like, okay, that's your choice. But I think those days are ending where it's like, no, if it's a non-NDIS support, it's actually a non-NDIS support. And, we're not doing this to be hard. And you should see, my team is incredible because, again, we're all parents of kids with disabilities. And we'll be like, how can we get this through? Like, we've got a Slack chat called NDIA compliance. And we are like, right, what can we do? What are your thoughts? What's this on the legislation? All that sort of thing. So if we're saying no, it's not because we find that fun. And we're not,
Sure.
and I do see a lot of much smaller providers probably towing the line harder than us because it's their livelihood on the line. So I have empathy, but I'm also like, go and educate yourself with the legislation.
100%. And so I know you've got your group and you've got your decoding the NDIS, which is that weekly or fortnightly?
It's monthly.
Monthly, yeah. And then you've got all this in between. How do you guys as a team breathe? Because it seems like it's quite intense and hectic and there's so many moving parts at the moment. How do you bring them all in together?
I think in terms of really having really clear and open communication. So one thing that I really try and put with my teams is we don't need to know all of the answers, but we are doing the best that we can and giving them the resources and the training that they need in order to answer things and be empowered, and also say, you know what, I don't know that, but let me check. Let me check with my team and I will get back to you. So I am a huge believer in the people in your company are only as good as what you put into them, and they are, you know, if you have shit people, you have a shit company. So you know, my team, they almost get love letters from me frequently, because I just, you know, I really want them to know how important they are to us. But it's also in terms of respecting them enough to have clear SOPs, clear processes, clear, you know, if you have a team member that doesn't actually understand what their role is and how to do their job, and that's, I've failed as a manager. You know, I've failed as the CEO, I've failed as the owner, whatever you want to do it as. People will thrive when they are well supported. And, you know, it's also important to be encouraged to fail, you know, and that's something that, you know, I talk with my team about, where, you know, they're like, oh, I'm sorry, like I shouldn't be asking this, or I should, and it's like, no, like, well,
I
this
love
is
small
lessons.
problems. Please ask me more.
Exactly, exactly. And so I think that that's really important. That's something I really hope to really embed in, you know, in Kindship. I know that we have, well, I like to think we have in Ali, and it's something I'm really excited to sort of continue to grow on at Kindship is, you know, fail. Like, I want your ideas, come to us. How can we improve? How can we do that? And if it doesn't work, who cares? We've tried something and we can try something else. Yeah.
You've expanded quite a lot too because you've gone into a bigger team.
Mm.
Has it changed the way that you work with people? Because you've gone from a I think the last time we spoke, it was you and another person, and now you've
Oh
got
my goodness.
Kindship
Wow.
and
Okay.
yeah,
Yeah.
you've
Wow. Okay.
really expanded your numbers.
Yeah, yeah. So look, I mean, we're still not it's still not a massive team at Ali and or Kindship. And I think it's, but what I have learnt is you are only as good as the people you surround yourself with. And
Yeah.
so Kindship, I have the most incredible executive team around me. And I would not be able to do what I do without them. And I think that it's important that they are given the space that they need to lead. And my faith in them, I think, allows them to, you know, again, be quite empowered and that sort of stuff. But it's also being able to have someone, you know, being available to them to go, oh, what do you think? And this, that, and the other. I've also learnt that I can't help myself, and I go into our compliance chat as a brain break, and I just absolutely love going, okay, no, this part of the legislation is this says this, and that sort of thing. And so the team will always go, Hayley, you'll love this one. This is the situation, and that sort of thing. So it's really shown me that, yes, I don't have a caseload anymore and I don't have that sort of hands-on experience, but also to, when we're super short staffed at Kindship, I'll jump on and I'll do the discovery calls, and I'll do you know, I'll take those phone calls. Yeah. And I just think that that's important. And I just think, you know, if it's a job that I expect my team to do, then it's not above me either. Yeah, I think that that's really important as well.
So anyone listening to the podcast and their new families in the NDIS, how does Kindship help new families feel less alone if they were to come to you guys?
I would say that we are able to offer lots of different things, right? So if you take, so from a plan management perspective, you can be like, you know what, well, you can't actually do anything without a plan manager. So yes, you know, it's kind of that, come and be a plan managed participant. But once you get that out of the way, so let's get that out of the way, we have our, you know, that really lovely, gentle group, the Kindship Connect group. So it's a private group, look after it in terms of it is only families and parents in there. So we've got 6,200 people in there. And it's a place that there is no stupid question. We have questions from how do you stop them blowing out of their nappies to
Yeah,
I'm losing my
it's
shit.
a
I
good
yelled.
question.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah, I'm sick of changing the sheets. What the bloody hell do you do? Up to, I'm losing my shit and I yelled at my kid today and I feel really bad. And then you've got, 20 comments of people going, babe, like seriously, we got you, me too, and this sort of thing. So I would say that that's a really nice, gentle place to land. And then from that, you're going to, you'll learn how to contact us anyway, because we're always there. But then, you'll see that there's a webinar and be like, that's something that I would like. But also, too, I'm now writing articles very frequently and newsletters and all that sort of thing. So we're just trying to value add wherever we can. And the beauty is that some things won't be relevant to you, but something else might be. And so you can take it whenever you're ready, or you can ignore us. It's completely fine. Yeah, we hope that we've got this lovely sort of, we're here when you need us, but we're not going to be offended if you don't.
Are families catching up, like outside the group for coffees?
We have, so in some areas, yes, we have sort of just stopped that because we weren't getting a huge amount of buy-in. But what we are doing instead is that we're actually working on some big events. So rather than having the weekly catch-ups, which a lot of other places do provide, we're actually looking and working on our first couple of quite bit bigger in-person events where there's something, because mums, and I'm using gendered language here, so
Yeah.
any dads and grandmas and grandpas who are listening to this, please know that you're included in this. But the predominant part of our group is mums. If mum thinks that it's doing something for her, we won't really get her, because no, that's selfish. Whereas if mum thinks that she can benefit her child, we'll get them. So we're sort of looking more at events where, look, come along, let's learn from something or some incredible human for half an hour to an hour, which is going to benefit your child. It'll break the ice, and then let's have a long lunch afterwards, or something like that. So there's still that connection piece, and we're really hoping that they're going to take off. And we're also toying around with doing a online summit around Carers Week for parents. So that's a watch this space thing as well.
So have I pretty much, like, my next question was going to be like, if you had a crystal ball, where do you see Kindship going?
Kindship. We're working with some incredible organizations to start to bring Barb to life outside of Kindship and to really be testing her. So that is really exciting. And also too, like many other plan management providers, Kindship's in a real state of uncertainty at the minute because we've had the announcement of that commissioned list. And I am really confident that if that list is based purely on compliance and, just having everything that they should have, we should be on that list. And then if we are on that list, we're just going to continue to grow because I'm really unbiased in that sense. I'm really biased. I think we're bloody good at what we do because I've seen the shit that's there. But we and our staff are going into that period of until we know what that commissioned plan management list looks like, we won't know if we're on it. So it's like for some of them, we can't guarantee them employment after, October next year. We don't know. So yeah, we're not alone in that.
Yeah, it's very overwhelming.
It is, but I'm completely convinced we'll be on that list.
I am too. Knowing you,
Yes. Yes.
you don't do shit for half, so I give you that. You really know how to.
Well, all one in, all in. We're going to do it.
Is there anything that I've missed that I should mention tonight?
So I don't think so. The only thing that I would just sort of say to your audience who are listening is, I would just acknowledge that it's a really uncertain time to be in the NDIS space and it's really scary, but please don't underestimate the importance of the work that you do, because I know what my support workers mean to us and our family. And you guys are just the beating heart of this community, because gosh, I would be so lost without my support workers.
We need you guys, really. Support workers need more than ever before.
Yeah. Yeah,
Especially
absolutely.
for just not just care, but for families as well. Just that consistency.
Yeah. Just that consistency. I think for me, what I always feel is just that when Pippa goes like with the, like that first, like whether they, go to find some kids for Pippa to go torture and teach her how to play, or, I just come upstairs because they're downstairs doing some food play or something like that. And I come up to my desk and just that, like, I don't need to worry. Like, I don't need to worry about Pippa hitting someone, yelling at someone, telling them to fuck off. All
The
that sort of stuff.
character. I got to give her that.
She is one of a kind, that one. So yeah, so in that sense, like just to feel so safe, like that you give one of your most precious things in this world, it's something that can't be underestimated.
Thank you so much for joining me in this podcast. It was so good to have a life update and just watching your like watching you grow, and as your career goes, you're a joy.
Thank you so much.
To be silly. Thank you. All right. Bye for now.
Bye.